Everything you think you know about bipolar disorder is probably wrong. Maybe you've heard of testosterone as just mood swings, or maybe you've seen a headline calling someone crazy or unpredictable. Today, I want to cut through all of that noise. By the end of this video, you'll know what bipolar is, what it isn't, some surprising facts you probably haven't heard before, and what it looks like when real people, including some names that you'll recognize, live with it in the public eye. Bipolar disorder is classified in the DSM-5, or in other words, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, as a mood disorder defined by episodes. Here's where it gets specific. Bipolar 1 requires meeting the criteria for at least one manic episode. To be diagnosed with a manic episode, there are 4 overall criteria, plus a list of 7 symptoms. To qualify, you need at least 3 of those 7. Symptoms can include things like decreased need for sleep, being more talkative, racing thoughts, inflated self-esteem, and risky behaviors like spending sprees and sexual risks. Now, manic episodes last at least 1 week, and they have to be severe enough to cause major impairment in daily life, sometimes even leading to hospitalization. Psychotic features may also be present. There's also something called a hypomanic episode. The structure is similar, but the differences matter. Hypomania lasts for at least 4 days. The changes in mood and behavior are noticeable to others, but they don't cause the same level of impairment, and they don't require hospitalization. And importantly, hypomania does not include psychotic features. In bipolar 1, you don't have to have a depressive episode to be diagnosed, but you may. If depression is present, the DSM requires 5 or more symptoms over the span of 2 weeks, and 2 of those must be depressed mood and loss of interest or pleasure. Other symptoms include changes in sleep or appetite, fatigue, excessive guilt, low concentration, or feelings of worthlessness. To be diagnosed with bipolar 2, on the other hand, it requires both hypomanic episodes and depressive episodes. By definition though, if someone has a full manic episode, they are no longer considered bipolar 2 and their diagnosis is now bipolar 1. Once it's bipolar 1, it cannot shift back to bipolar 2. Here's the interesting part. For a long time, bipolar 2 was considered as a less severe form of bipolar 1, but that thinking has changed. Bipolar 2 involves longer and often more painful periods of depression combined with swings into hypomania. It's not a milder version of bipolar 1, it's just different. In fact, the DSM notes that bipolar 2 often improves with age, which is a point of hope. However, some people may progress into bipolar 1 if their symptoms worsen into full mania. So what does this mean? When we say bipolar disorder, we're talking about a spectrum. Not every experience with bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 is going to be the same across people, and we'll get into more of that in a little bit. Now that we've defined what bipolar is, let's clear up what it isn't. Myth number 1, bipolar disorder is just mood swings. The truth? Everyone has mood swings. You get good news, you feel happy, something stressful happens, and you're sad. That's normal. Bipolar disorder is different because the episodes last for days, weeks, sometimes months, and they come with a very specific set of symptoms. Bipolar disorder is way more complex than just being moody. In fact, we can all be a little moody, regardless of this diagnosis or not. Myth number 2, people with bipolar disorder are dangerous. This one is harmful, and unfortunately, it's reinforced by headlines and stereotypes, which we'll talk more about later. But the reality, people with bipolar disorder are more likely to be harmed by others than to harm others themselves. The real risk is untreated symptoms leading to self-harm, not violence towards others. Myth number 3, bipolar disorder is rare. It isn't. About 2.8% of US adults live with bipolar disorder each year, which is about 5.7 million people living with it annually. Millions are affected and many more are left undiagnosed. Chances are you already know someone with bipolar disorder. You just might not realize it. Myth number 4, bipolar is a personality flaw. This one is subtle but extremely damaging. Some people believe that being bipolar is just being unpredictable, unreliable, or dramatic. But bipolar disorder is a clear medical condition with criteria. It's not a choice, it's not a weakness, and it's not character. Myth number 5, bipolar is just a more severe form of depression. The truth? It's not. While depression is a part of bipolar disorder, the presence of manic or hypomanic episodes is what sets this apart. That's why misdiagnosis happens often. The symptoms overlap, but the disorders aren't the same. Myth number 6, bipolar disorder looks the same in everyone. In reality, this disorder is highly individualized. Some people cycle quickly, while others have long stretches of stability. Some experience intense mania, others depression, but there isn't a single look to bipolar. Myth number 7, people with bipolar disorder can't live happy, fulfilling, and successful lives. This one may be the most important to push back against. With the right treatment, support, and strategies, many people with bipolar disorder lead full, vibrant lives. Careers, families, relationships, creativity. Bipolar is part of their story, but it doesn't define their whole story. Now, let's switch gears and dive into some fascinating real-world fun facts about bipolar disorder that might surprise you. Fact number 1, creativity surges have been associated with mania or hypomania. Many people with bipolar disorder report feeling more creative during manic or hypomanic episodes. In one study, 82% of participants had increased creativity when experiencing a hypomanic or manic episode. Other studies have confirmed this as well. Fact number 2, bipolar 2 often goes undiagnosed for years. Although bipolar 2 has been recognized as a distinct diagnosis since 1994, people can go more than 10 years without receiving an accurate diagnosis, and many are treated for depression instead. For me, I was treated for depression when I was a teen and later received my diagnosis as an adult. Had I had the tools and resources to manage my hypomanic episodes, it might not have led to the severe depressive episodes that I've experienced, which is why it's so important to get this right. Fact number 3, smartphones can help predict depressive symptoms with high accuracy. For example, a study using acceleration data in people with bipolar disorder reached about 84% accuracy in classifying depressive episodes. Across other studies combining GPS, usage patterns, and behavior, predictive accuracy ranges from 80% to 94%. This shows the potential of smartphones as powerful tools for early detection and intervention. Fact number 4, the brain's clock genes, or biological rhythms, are correlated with mood disorders. In one set of studies, mice with a mutation in the clock gene showed striking parallels to human mania: hyperactivity, reduced need for sleep, more risk-taking, and heightened response to rewards like sugar or cocaine. Even more compelling, treatment with lithium, the gold standard mood stabilizer, brought many of these behaviors back to normal. Researchers also found increasing firing of dopamine neurons in the brain's reward center, linking clock to both mood regulation and the biology of mania. Fact number 5, personality might influence the way that bipolar disorder shows up. Research suggests that high neuroticism increases the risk of depression, while low neuroticism, combined with high agreeableness, can be protective. Low extroversion, in other words, being more introverted, can still predict worse outcomes even when paired with generally positive traits. In other words, personality may determine how bipolar disorder manifests in each person. But these facts aren't just trivia. They highlight how technology, biology, and even personality all weave into the complexity of bipolar disorder. Okay, so let's zoom out from the science for a minute and talk about something way more familiar: celebrities. Why celebrities? Because they're the faces that most people associate with bipolar disorder. You've seen the headlines, the drama, but rarely do you hear the real story. Let's walk through 3 case studies: Kanye West, Selena Gomez, and Halsey. And let's look at what's happening under the surface. So let's start with Kanye. You probably remember the chaos. Canceled concerts, Twitter storms, the headlines labeling him as unstable. But here's what was really happening. In 2016, Kanye ended a concert mid-show and was hospitalized for paranoia and psychosis. The media spun it as a scandal. In reality, it was a medical emergency. Then, in 2019, on David Letterman's show, Kanye explained mania in his own words, and he described it as, "You can become almost more adolescent in your expression. Everyone wants to kill you and you pretty much don't trust anyone." That's not a punchline. That's the lived terror of mania. In 2020, he reclaimed the narrative, calling his bipolar disorder a superpower and even putting it on his album cover: "I hate being bipolar, it's awesome." The point? Kanye's story isn't about chaos. It's about how the world chooses to respond to somebody experiencing mania in public, and how stigma makes a spectacle out of survival. Next up, Selena Gomez. Her documentary, My Mind and Me, is one of the most vulnerable celebrity films ever released. In the documentary, she shares a moment backstage where she breaks down and says, "I don't want to be alive right now." Those words led to her canceled tour and ultimately a diagnosis. The backlash? Some critics called her weak, and her response? At a Women in Film event, she fired back, That is not shameful. I'm sacrificing myself a little bit for a greater purpose. What's happening under the surface is powerful. Selena is reframing vulnerability as advocacy. She's saying, if I share my truth, someone else might survive theirs. Finally, Halsey. They've always been blunt about the link between their art and their mental health. In a Rolling Stone cover story, Halsey admitted that they wrote their album Manic in the middle of a manic episode, but that chaotic burst became art. Halsey has said that mania has left them feeling irresponsible, untrustworthy, and unreliable. And in interviews, they've shared that they've been hospitalized twice, fearing that they would harm themselves. That's not glamour, that's raw honesty. And it shows that creativity and instability can exist together. But it's the advocacy and openness that saves lives. So here's why I'm telling you all of this. Kanye shows us how stigma twists mental illness into a spectacle. Selena proves that vulnerability can be used as a weapon against shame. And Halsey reminds us that creativity doesn't erase pain, but it can turn pain into something meaningful. Together, these stories humanize bipolar disorder. They make it harder to dismiss, harder to stereotype, and easier to understand. And that's the real case study, advocacy in action. All right, so let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot today. The definitions, the myths, some surprising fun facts, and even the way celebrities experience bipolar in real life. Here are the key takeaways I want you to walk away with. Takeaway number 1, bipolar disorder is not just mood swings. It's a medical condition with clear criteria, lasting episodes, and real impact. Takeaway number 2, stigma distorts the story, and the real story is one of humanity. Takeaway number 3, bipolar disorder is complex, but it's also survivable. People do live full, successful lives. Some find creativity in the process. Others find power in advocacy, but no one should have to navigate it alone. And maybe this is the biggest point of all. Knowledge reduces stigma. The more we understand what bipolar really is and what it isn't, the harder it becomes to stereotype, dismiss, or shame people living with it. But this is just the start. In the next episode, we'll deep dive into what brain scans actually reveal about bipolar disorder, and I promise you, it'll blow your mind. If this episode resonated with you, please like, comment, subscribe, and maybe share with someone who needs it. I'm Courtney, and this is the Bipolar Deep Dive series. Thanks for watching, and until next time.